Chapter 1: The Kindergarten Mentality. The kindergarten mentality has been instrumental in helping to save my life. Its use has been so powerful that I can probably explain it and end the book after this chapter, but I won't because this journey is about a lot more than how I learned how to learn again. There's also what to learn and or remember that I want to make easier to grasp, and not just for you. I'd also like to mention the unlearning that happens when the kindergarten mentality is in use, which might even be more helpful than the learning side. So, what is the kindergarten mentality? It's a learning state I came across when I started this journey of mental, physical, and spiritual health back in late 2017 that was sparked by what I call the moment in the mirror, which you'll read about soon, if you don't stop reading before you get there. Like most people, especially you reading right now, I thought I knew it all, or at least enough to be successful in my life, always moving towards a goal or goals that seemed just out of reach. But reality was telling me that I had to get past knowing it all for me to find my path in my journey. I thought I knew a lot about surviving my old story, but surviving it was just keeping it alive, and that wasn't going to help me to learn how to take on the new challenges that were sure to be required to lift me out of what were then my current circumstances. Having to learn something new, or even broadening my horizons a little, is where I had given up so many times before. At nearly 40 years old, new information felt like it was just too freaking hard to learn, and a part of that was because I didn't want to learn new, wrong stuff. Don't worry, I might swear later. I just didn't want to drop an F-bomb in the Kindle preview. As you'll see in the form of words, sentences, and even paragraphs in the next chapter, I had failed repeatedly at figuring out alcoholism and many other addictions, including the addiction to trying and failing. After I had my moment in the mirror, I realized that something in me was stubborn enough to keep me from opening up to new information. It was my opinions, my judgments, my beliefs, my need to be right, and my know-it-allism. If you weren't sure, know-it-allism wasn't a word until I made it up just now. I'll use it in another sentence and maybe we can make it a thing. Watch out for that politician, he suffers from know-it-allism. When you know everything or think you do, learning becomes exceedingly difficult because there is no space for what you're trying to learn to get in. You hear a bit of new information, and the bullshit machine tries to connect it with what you already know. If you're trying to break a habit or make a significant change in your life, what you already know is trying to make it impossible to fit the new information in, because it doesn't jive with the story of you that it knows. As you'll learn extensively in this book, it's nearly impossible to build your new story if your old one is still in the way. That doesn't mean you won't keep useful parts of your old story, but the foundation of what you think you know is inevitably going to shift. Enter the kindergarten mentality. This concept is not a new one, I'm sure, but it's far more effective than trying to keep convincing ourselves that something is true or false. The truth passes very slowly through the filters that we've created for ourselves, and we need something to break down the wall. So, in my genius, because we're all geniuses, I went back to the last time I didn't consider myself an asshole that suffers from know-it-allism, which just happened to be kindergarten. It's when I didn't have all the answers, but also when I did. I was considered by my teachers as wicked smart when I was a kid and wanted to bring back some of that easy learning magic that got me such good grades before I was 10 years old. I remembered the first day my mom brought me to school to get me registered for kindergarten. I had a big willingness to learn and be creative, very few preconceived notions of right and wrong, and I wasn't able yet to judge myself so harshly for the mistakes parents and teachers would eventually tell me I made or was making. There wasn't any information that could go against my beliefs because I didn't have many. I was at school to learn some. I was 5, maybe 4. I didn't really do the math. I'm sure I can sit here and figure out some adding and subtracting, but that would interrupt me finishing this sentence. The point is that I was too young to really believe in anything too strongly, unless it was Santa Claus, who is real, by the way. All you have to do to use the kindergarten mentality is get out of the way of how smart you think you are, and remember that there's nobody to impress with how much you think you know. Speaking of fiction, another way to look at learning information that may challenge your beliefs is to treat it like it's a fictional story. How often do you get mad at a fictional story? Almost never. Wait, almost, Neil? Yes, person reading this and asking me questions months after this book has been released, that I'm also weirdly answering, almost. Green Eggs and Ham has tested my patience many times with its rhyming, misdirection, and nonsensicalness. 2 things before I continue. The last sentence was a joke, and I was really surprised when autocorrect didn't correct nonsensicalness. In kindergarten, we had no clue what was real or true and what wasn't, so everything was both fiction and nonfiction. Even when I learned the difference between fiction and nonfiction, I kept getting confused between the two in high school anyway, so maybe it never really mattered. By letting your guard down and reading something you want to learn as fiction, you can get past the bullshit machine, which is trying to stay alive by keeping its old beliefs intact and presenting them as who you are. All you're doing is circumventing the system by not making life so serious. Just like how the TV works. If your "this sounds like bullshit" machine just went off, there's also a chapter on triggers just ahead, so skip to it if you'd like, and come back. How'd you like it? Cool? No spoilers, please. You might be able to tell already that this book is going to be fun to read. It needs to be, because anxiety isn't fun. Addictions aren't fun. Most of the time. And being in shitty relationships is not fun. Not living your dream is criminal. Living in fear for a good portion of your life is unnatural. Most importantly, every time you laugh, chuckle, and open up, you're creating a friendly space in which to receive the information that you're reading. As you'll read in my story, and what you already know about yours, even if you don't believe it yet, is that breaking down the beliefs we carry is crucial for change. One reason I'm writing this book is because I learned how to make that process as easy as possible for myself, and I want to share it with you. So, fill up your kindergarten mentality machine with jet fuel, and let's get free from letting anxiety and addiction call the shots. For extra receiving capabilities while reading, combine the kindergarten mentality and reading like it's fiction approach with gratitude for existence and being in your body. You'll have a powerhouse learning mental state. Like I said at the beginning of this chapter, I really feel great about what's happening in these words already. Think about it. If we were able to go about our lives being grateful and willing to learn, anxiety and addiction would be a non-issue, and nobody would have to awaken. I could stop now, rename the book The Kindergarten Mentality and Gratitude, the short and simple way to be happy, and just have these few short pages that everyone would finish. How awesome would it be to know that everyone who reads your book finishes it? Obviously, I didn't do that because there's probably words on the next page. Let me look. Yep, words. So keep reading. I'm naked for some of the next chapter.